Hi everyone, TARDIS Guy 123 here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the rather controversial Vengeance on Varos. So, Vengeance on Varos stars Colin Baker and Nicola Walker as the 6th Doctor and Peri. This is their third story together and the second story in the new 45-minute format with the two-part stories as opposed to the 4-part 25-minute format that was previously gone for the most, well, for all of the previous years. Obviously not always 4 parts. You had some 7, some 2, some 6, a couple 5, but yeah, now this is the first major change in the format really, but very much the same. You can find some edits out there which are 4 parts instead of the 2 parts, but that's just it's not really much. It's just a minor change. Really, it's just superficial for the most part. It is very much still in the style of the classic era for the most part, and it's sort of an experiment that only lasted 1 season really, because they went back to the 25-minute format when it comes to Trial of a Time Lord. But anyway, now that I've rambled on for a minute, this is the special edition version of Vengeance on Varos. You can find the much older normal edition if you really want to, but that has sort of like the different image of Colin Baker there, and has sort of like not very nice cover at all really, and less special features of course, and it's probably actually more expensive to be honest, because it's pretty much out of print I think. So yeah, I mean, if you really want the original you can go for it, but probably the special edition is much better. One issue about it which I'll talk about in a second, but anyway, it's a 2-disc set as you can see there. You've got the cover with Peri in her sort of like mutated form. You've got the 6th Doctor doing his iconic stance there. You've got the V for Varos behind him there. Then you've also got Sil, played by Nabal Shaban, I think that's how you pronounce it. I probably butchered that name horribly, but that's that. Spine now, there is the problem. It's the reversed spine, which I always go for, but usually the reversed spines don't have special edition written there. For some reason, this one does. It also has it on the other side as well. Not sure why they did that just for this release. I think they also did it for the Green Death special edition. I don't know. I'll just have to put up with it. But anyway, there are the images. It's written by Philip Martin, who's also written a bit for Big Finish. I think he's written 2 Sil stories for Big Finish as well. You've got the special features there, and you've got the other random stuff there. PG, as I said with my Terror of the Autons review, some may disagree with that. But anyway, we have disc 1 there with Colin on it, and disc 2 there with Nicola Bryant on it. And also we have the booklet here, which I'll just get out to show you. You want to again have Peri in her mutated form there. You have the little description bit written there, which we always have. Turning it over now, got all the special features on the back there, and finally, as previously mentioned, it is just 2 parts but 45 minutes each. Now, as I mentioned before, this one, like most of Colin Baker's era to be honest, is quite a controversial one really. Some people just complain about the overall quality of the content, and some people complain about the the ethics behind it, and should it really be shown to children? Is it too grim and all that stuff really? And is it just too grim in general? Is it really Doctor Who in that sense? And it is quite a dark story, I would admit that, but at the same time, it is doing what Doctor Who often does, sort of like commentating the real world at the time, and sort of like picking up on the whole idea of home video entertainment now, and just like have here the idea of these video nasties, sort of like people getting tortured for the purposes of entertainment, really. And you know, that's very much the thing holding up this story, where you have this world which is being exploited, and the world is obviously called Varos, and it's being exploited by I'm not sure if the business is actually mentioned, sort of like, but it's run, well, not run, I don't think, but Sil is their ambassador there, and you know, he's sort of like there to try and get as much money as possible, so he's extorting them. They have this highly valuable resource which they're selling for dirt cheap because they know nothing better, and then you have all this cruel stuff that goes on. Anyone who rebels against the rather, well, fascist regime in a way, is put in the torture chamber. I can't remember what it's at. Oh, Torture Dome, I think is what it's called. It's sort of like this prison area where people are tortured and their tortures are filmed and then put on live television for the entertainment of the general public, not only to sort of like warn the general public not to rebel, but also just to entertain them, really, because they're rather sadistic in that sense. So yeah, you can see why this story is quite dark. And then also you have sort of like the governor, the one calling all the shots, is also a prisoner in his own right in some ways. You know, he is basically up to the vote of the people. If the people don't like him, he's not sort of like simply voted out. He's subjected to particle dissemination, I think it's called, where sort of like he is put under, well, he's basically tortured to near death, really, and eventually it does lead to death. And then when he dies, they elect a new governor who probably won't do much better than the previous one. And so Varos is very much caught in this vicious cycle, and you know, as I've just explained there, it is a wonderful world created here. You know, that is a real credit to Philip Martin for creating this marvellous world here, this very grim world, but nevertheless a very intriguing one at the same time. It's probably morbid curiosity that's driving this, but it is a very intriguing setup there, and very well done, and very well built upon. And you know, it's like, you know, very dystopian, but at the same time, just, you know, I love bleak flings for the bleak flings. Well, that means something totally different. Bleak things quite a lot in this style. You know, sometimes there is such a thing as too bleak, I'd say, sort of like, depends on the way it's done. Sometimes the more domestic bleakness that things like, well, one that comes to mind is Death in Heaven. That's just sort of like a different kind of bleak, which I don't really like. But this bleakness, I can get quite a lot of enjoyment out of the way it's set up, because it's obviously not an alternative world, an alien world and whatnot. And you know, a wonderful built upon world. You know, you have history there, the fact that it used to be a prison colony, and very much still the officers in there are still ruling above the rest. It is a very well built upon world, I'll say here. That is one of my biggest positives of this story. The world that is created here is marvellous. Now let's talk about the most controversial scene in this story, and that is probably the acid bath sequence, where the Doctor's assumed dead at the start of part 2 is brought to have his body chucked in the acid bath to be disposed of. And then he gets up and frightens some of the workers to fall into it. And, you know, it's quite a controversial sequence, mainly because the Doctor just says, "Forgive me if I won't join you," at the end there. Which is, yeah, borderline, I guess, you know. Probably wouldn't get away with that nowadays, quite bleak. But at the same time, you know, I don't really mind that, to be honest. There are some people who hate it, some people say it's out of character for the Doctor. But, you know, he didn't push them in there, really. They were very... Well, one was pulled in by the one who fell in before, and the one who fell in before was sort of like scared when the Doctor got up, because he sort of like thought he was dead. And then, you know, if you think someone's dead and then they suddenly get up, you're just going to take fright a bit. And when there's an acid bath nearby, things don't often end too well. And they were bad guys, you know, it doesn't really bother me that much, that scene. The scene that more bothers me involving the Sixth Doctor is sort of like at the end there, where he just well, I'm not sure if it's him, but he sort of like sets it all up and whatnot for the plants to go into the officers and whatnot and kill them. That was a bit off in my opinion. I don't know, just something about that doesn't sit too well with me. But I don't know. I'm an odd one. I don't mind the acid bath sequence, but that bit, which is often which I haven't really heard mentioned that much, doesn't sit as well with me. And then also, one of the characters who dies as well, while we're on the topic, is the one who sort of like turns Peri into that monster you see before you dare. He sort of like has this scar down his face where he's experimented upon himself. You sort of like feel that he's a bit of a cheap version of Sharaz Jek, really. They were trying to do something similar to that with the mask reveal and whatnot. But ultimately, it doesn't really work for me. His character wasn't really that interesting from the start. And, it just sort of like, it just felt a bit clunky, really. He didn't really, he fitted within the world quite well. But he just felt a bit extra superfluous to the overall story, really. It could have functioned fairly easily without him, to be honest. And, it felt that there was a bigger deal made of him than there actually should have been. And while we're on the more negative aspects of the story, I may as well mention my main negative. And that is sort of like the way it ends is a bit poorly executed. I don't know what's wrong with it. I'm not entirely sure what happens, to be honest. It's just 1 minute the what's it called? The people that are going to mine this planet for its Cyton 7, I think it's what the ore was called. They're sort of like ready to invade, and then suddenly they say, nope, we're not invading. We found loads of this stuff on this other place, and then so they're just like, we need this stuff. Pay as much money as they demand for it. It's a bit odd. I don't know what was the thinking behind that. It was a bit rushed. I don't know. I'm just not really that fond of it. And then the Doctor just sort of like waltzes in and just said, "Ha, you're beaten, Sil." And then Sil just starts having a bit of a tantrum, and that's the way it ends. And after this marvellously weak story, some up and downs, but overall I did enjoy it up to that point. But at the same time, that resolution didn't sit right with me. Not sure why, it just didn't really, and that's quite disappointing in my opinion. But the rest of the story does make up for it. So let's go into the rest of the story now and talk about those positives. And there is quite a lot to that I like about this story. It's got quite a lot to it. As I mentioned, the world that was created is very nice. And you also get to see a section of that world through these two characters who never interact with the rest of the cast. You've got this husband and wife, this very nice double act that goes off to the side of the main story. Doesn't get involved in it whatsoever. They're just sort of like two people on Varos representing the citizens, representing their sadistic nature. You have the wife who's very loyal to her governor, and then you've got the the husband who doesn't like the guy at all, isn't very happy with Varos as a whole. You've sort of like got the patriot and then the anti-patriot, I guess is the way to put it. Two opposites who somehow got together and got married. I don't know, maybe it's sort of like the way Varos is run, it's sort of like forced marriages or something, I don't know. But yeah, they obviously don't get along that well. They are an old married couple pretty much, so they get along like an old married couple. And it's quite entertaining to see them interact, and sort of like to see the world of Varos from outside his point of view, and to see the citizens of Varos as well, to sort of like get that insight into the everyday life of people on Varos, and sort of how they watch all this entertainment on TV and whatnot, how it's just like, when was the last time we had a good execution, and all that lovely stuff. Well, not lovely, especially if you're the guy getting tortured or executed, but nevertheless it is quite interesting to see that point of view. And then at the end you have that marvellous scene where transmission cuts out, and then they're just like, what are we going to do with our lives now? And it's just, they are two wonderful characters, and I do love that bit's just off to the side, not interacting with the story at all. Works very well in its own little bubble, and fits very much and helps create this wonderful world that is Varos. Now let's talk about one of the villains of this piece. As I mentioned, it probably does have one too many villains. You could have easily cut that guy whose name I don't even remember, who had the scarred face. But anyway, Sil is a marvellous creation here. He has returned quite a few times, once on the TV series, again in Colin Baker's era, and then twice on audio, once again with Colin Baker in Mission to Magnus and The Antidote to Oblivion. and he is a great character, a very very evil character. You know, he's ultimately just there for greed. He's very greedy. He just wants as much money as possible. Very stubborn, and you know, that's just sort of like the ultimate evil, really, sort of like greed. And you know, at the same time, he's very entertaining. He's got that sort of like eccentric way of speaking, which is sort of like explained through a voice box, I think. But I don't know, at the same time, he's just a very entertaining character. He has that wonderful laugh, which I'm not going to try to imitate, because that'll probably ruin something in my larynx. But, you know, it's just... he's just a great character, very well played by Emil Shaban. And he very much brings that role to life, very much gets to the role. I believe he was a fan beforehand, so, you know, you can very much tell that by his enthusiasm for the role and being this villain. But nevertheless, he's a very good actor at the same time, and does bring that character to life very well. The prosthetics there are very nice to create this slug-like creature. Randomly turns green in the next story, I think, which is Mind Warp, the parts 5 to 8 of Trial of a Time Lord. But you know, here he is wonderful here, and it's a wonderful creation still is. Well done to Philip Martin for that. He has created just a very entertaining character, really, and a very entertaining villain at the same time, who works very well within the world of this story, and you know, sort of like works very nicely off to the side of it as well. Because is he the main villain, really? I don't know. He sort of like is the one extorting them and sort of like pulling the strings a bit, but at the same time, you know, it's almost like Varos itself is its own villain, really, in the way it's run and whatnot. You have sort of like the general character, the one with the funny moustache, whose name I also can't remember. But, you know, nevertheless, he could arguably be the main villain of the piece, or Seal could arguably be the main villain of the piece, depending on which stance you take. You know, you can argue both points, really. And talk about funny moustache guy, whose name I can't remember. He's quite a good villain as well, and is very much sort of like the one manipulating everything for the most part. He's sort of like the one who's really in charge of Varos, but he's not put in that position of having to face the mercy of his people, really, that the governor is. And you know, the governor is very much sort of like the one who's put in that position, and is a sympathetic character at the same time. You know, arguably he's a villain. He does definitely start off as a villain in the way that he's portrayed and whatnot, but at the same time, over time, you get to see that there are layers to that character, and it's a very well written part, very well played part. Not sure about the actor who played him, but nevertheless, he is a very good actor and does that part very well. I have a feeling I've seen him in something else before, probably another Doctor Who story. I don't know, you do often get actors who appear in multiple stories. But nevertheless, he does a very good job of that governor role, and you know, you very much feel sympathy for him, despite him at first being portrayed as quite a big villainous character. So overall, I know a lot of people aren't very tolerant towards this story. They do have their gripes with it. Not many people like the grim tone that it goes for. Some people just don't like the plot, and I can sort of see why. It arguably does have a bit too much going on. But at the same time, for the most part, it works for me, except the resolution. But, you know, overall, it is highly enjoyable story, I would say. And it's another 8 out of 10 from me. I've been given 8 out of 10s all over the place, really. I think my last 5 reviews or so have been 8 out of 10s. You know, I'll try to mix it up a bit, but can't make any promises. Next up is a review of Doom Coalition 2, so I'll have to see how that turns out. Might be another 8 out of 10, I don't know yet, but yeah, Vengeance on Varos is an enjoyable story, in my opinion at least. Some people may love it even more than I do, some people may like it less than I do, some people probably absolutely hate it. I do know a couple of people who just don't like it whatsoever. So, you know, should you take the risk picking this one up? It depends how far you're into your DVD collection, depends how much more Colin you want, really. You know, while I do like it, I can sort of see the reasons for it being disliked, and you know, I can't promise that you who are watching this are going to enjoy this story if you haven't picked it up already. So yeah, that's all I've really got to say for now. Thank you for watching this review, everyone, and I will see you all next time with the review of Doom Coalition 2. Bye, everyone.
It's Varos.
No! I like that one.
Kill him!
The one in the funny clothes.
Execute them!
This doctor must be eliminated. He smells the truth of things.
Be
just won't believe the truth.
Truth is a very flexible commodity here on Varos, Peri.
Oh dear. And I really liked him.
Close up on death throws, please.
How long should I hold?
And cut it.